Evan is here, um, graduated last year and has done some cool stuff, and he's going to tell you all about it. And spoiler, he is at a job that will be opening up soon. And so he's here to help you all apply if you are interested, or just hear what he's doing and see the type of work he does there. Evan, you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Thank you for the introduction. This is kind of crazy to be here with so many familiar faces and so many people that, I've looked up to for advice and now I'm the one speaking. So I guess I will just get right into it. All right, let me share my screen. Everyone can see that. Good. All right. So I will get started. This is about my past year since I've graduated, a little less than a year, working on some nonprofit journalism in the Midwest. Uh, so I'll take you through where I work, how I got there, the many different hats I wear at this job, some of the takeaways, and then hopefully some opportunities for some of you listening. So to start off, I am working at a nonprofit called Midstory. They started in 2018 and are based in Toledo, Ohio. Our kind of main products that we produce are a lot of different things. We make a lot of different articles that are kind of range from like small topical things, did you know this about the Midwest, to, some heavier hitting articles that are a little bit more researched. And then we have some long form podcast series. We have many exhibitions that we put up around Toledo. We have many documentary series we've worked on, and then longer form research projects into a bunch of different topics. And something that I will hit again and again during this presentation is we are a very, very small team. We are about a dozen full-time people. A third of that is kind of the founders, a third of that is our data team, and then a third of that is the fellows like me. So very, very small team. And as a nonprofit, don't have a ton of resources to draw to, but we make the most with what we have. And kind of our main mission, as the tagline says there, is to progress the Midwest narrative and kind of be a voice for the Midwest. Something that the founders talk a lot about is that the Midwest is a bit of a news desert. Most of the news you hear is coming from the coast and it's about the coast. And there just really isn't that voice coming from the Midwest and advocating for all the things that make the Midwest great. So, how I got there, I graduated last year in May. I graduated actually a year early in 3 years. And I came into Newhouse knowing that I wanted to edit and that I didn't necessarily want to be in a big city. I'm from Pittsburgh originally. So I came in with that goal. And during my first semester, during, I'm forgetting what the class was, the COM 105, maybe, whatever the hands-on class was that we all had to take. One of our projects was a documentary. And that is kind of where I fell in love with making documentary films. And from that, I kind of pursued that for my 3 years at school. So I joined Jerk Magazine, where I kind of overhauled that video team into producing some really great documentaries on campus life. The summer before senior year, I joined Shayna on the World War II documentary trip that I know a few people on this call have been on. And that was a really amazing experience to be part of a professional documentary crew and, see the extra steps that they go through, but then also some of the ways that they're very much run and gun and doing it on the seam of their pants, kind of like how I have done some of my productions. So that was really cool to see, and also just looked great on the resume working on that trip. And then during that same summer, because that trip was only for about a week and a half, didn't have a full-time formal internship, I worked with my local marching band that I was a part of during high school, and I basically took over their social media strategy. And I produced around 20 like 1 minute documentaries that went out on all the socials just to kind of explain behind the scenes of marching band, kind of give a closer look to the parents that aren't in it every day. And then at the end of that, I compiled that into an hour-long documentary that then I sold to the parents. And that was a really great experience that summer, and kind of started me to dip my toes into social media stuff. And then in the fall, we had the post-production practices trip to New York City that I was on with many of you. And one thing I learned from that trip is that I definitely liked a small team. Uh, you know, it was really interesting to see the different teams we visited, just how different the dynamics could be. And I think I definitely like the dynamic more of being really a central part of a small unit rather than necessarily just a cog in a machine. So that was kind of my takeaway from the trip. And then in my last semester, I worked on my capstone, which was this documentary about old Cadillac ambulances and my dad and his best friend. And that was a 15-minute documentary. So all that to say, I was pursuing documentaries. I knew I wanted to edit docs, but I didn't necessarily want to be in a big city. And I think it's something that isn't necessarily talked about at Newhouse enough, that everybody at Newhouse has such big city ambitions and LA ambitions and New York City ambitions that it can be a little isolating not having that be your goal. So I wasn't really sure where I should be looking. But luckily, the fall of my senior year, I was browsing the Newhouse Virtual Career Fair, and I found Midstory, and I read the little write up they had there, and I was blown away. It felt like something that was made for me, right? I grew up in Pittsburgh. I know the Rust Belt well, even though that's not, Pittsburgh isn't necessarily Midwest, and I really wanted to try to work there. So I went through a few series of interviews, and then they accepted me as a media fellowship in late January. So basically, my whole last semester, I knew where I was going to end up in Toledo. So, on to the work. I want to take you through first the skills of the job. These are not necessarily all skills that I came in knowing, but they're pretty much all skills that I use on a daily basis. So, Adobe Premiere is the biggest one, right? That's the editing software that most of us know, and the one that I learned and grew up knowing. No, grew up knowing. So even though I knew the software, I did need to learn their workflow, right? Like every company is going to have a different way that they do their videos, and I had to adjust to that. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. After Effects, I had some experience in, but not nearly enough to make anything substantial or professional. And that's been one really great thing about this fellowship is they've paid for some of that professional development. So they got us an After Effects course that I followed along for a few months, and it just really, really upped my proficiency with After Effects. And I told Shayna while I was preparing for this call, like I'm surprised, like basically my job is most of the time as an animator now, and I never would have thought that would have been the case throughout my time in college. So that's been really great. Cinematography, we're shooting a lot of things, sometimes on the go, sometimes in the office, and we need to be able to light those and set up quick. I will say one thing: at the cage at Newhouse, we were always on Canon cameras, so I had never touched the Sony camera in my life, and that's the type of cameras that we have at the office. So I just, needed to learn a new type of camera, which wasn't too difficult. Audio mixing, we have an hour-long radio show we do now. So I've been doing a lot of mixing on that. Since we did have someone that was Yannick, you can see on the left there, was kind of our podcast guy, but he's finished up his fellowship, so I'm kind of taking on a lot of that now. Graphic design, we do a ton of work in Canva for both our Instagram content and our exhibits and the cover graphics for our stories. So a lot of that. And also that's kind of part of the animation too, is having good graphic design uh, ideas for that. Journalism, because I was a production major, I never had a single journalism course. So learning some of those fundamentals was super important. And then lastly, just social media content creation. So I basically graduated from Syracuse. I had a week to come home, buy furniture, pack, repack, and then the next week I was out in Toledo. So it was a very quick turnaround time. And basically a week after I got there is when we had our summer internship program start. So this is a really, really core mission of Midstory, is bringing people from all around the country, 25 interns from all around the country, and mostly from Ivy League schools. We actually had two from Syracuse this year, Kieran and Marty. They were great. And bringing them to the Midwest, to Toledo, and letting them explore. We did a lot of like types of field trips, like the national park down here, Cedar Point, but then also just letting them write about this region that maybe some of them grew up in, some of them it was completely new and foreign to them. Um, and it's a really great experience for these college interns. So, as my role as a fellow, I was having to give feedback on pitches and stories, editing stories and articles. And, we had a few people who, who had like video pitches. We had one student who wanted to pitch like this culinary series. So me as the video person got to kind of work that pitch with him. And since I had done some more productions than him, pointing out other things he needed to consider and think about. And then the kind of capstone of the internship was our expo that you can see on the bottom right. So that was all of the interns got to make these poster boards that showed off some of the articles that they had made. And then we had it open to the public, and the public got to walk around, kind of like a poster board session, and learn what the interns worked on. And as you can see from the postcard on the bottom left, a big tagline of the internship is "You don't have to intern in NYC." So a very fun project that I was brought in to do. It was kind of my first major project at Midstory, even though it was kind of a fun thing, is that the office was planning this summer-long prank called Subtle Severance Summer on the interns. I'm hoping most of you have seen Severance. They were just gonna slowly, like casually bring up severance things into the office and just be very subtle about it, and hopefully no one would catch on. And my job was to film a Severance style video that would be played at the expo and kind of reveal the prank to all of them. And while it was a very fun project, what it taught me is adapting to the limitations we had. So we don't have a ton of equipment, so I had to make do. So we didn't have a dolly, but we did have a lot of rolly chairs. So I got in a lot of chairs. You can see we were trying to recreate the Adam Scott like running shot through the hallway, and my other fellows were pushing me down the hallway. And then on the top right, we were trying to recreate the heli desk shot, and we used a C stand and put it all the way up on the ceiling to get that shot, which was a little precarious, but it was fun. So yeah, that taught me a lot about just making the most of what we have and really thinking on the fly to make what I wanted to make. So I will show you the video. It's pretty short, but just to give you a taste of this fun first major project that I had. And just let me know if you can hear the sound. So a very fun video that I got to put together during my first few months. But then I will get on to the actual meat and potatoes of what I work on. So up first is our social media content. So if you go to any of our social pages, you will see this kind of format that you can see on the slide here. It's called BTS. It's our behind the story, and it's basically where our writers, whether that's interns or full-time, will briefly talk about a story they've written to hopefully get people to go check out the full article. So if you watch any of those videos, and we'll watch a few, you'll see that there's a very distinct company style that was decided before I came in. And that's something I needed to learn and adapt to, so that something I made didn't look any different from something that someone else made. And we had a distinct workflow that I will take you through. And one thing that made it super helpful is that the first day I got a Premiere project and an After Effects project that had every BTS that had been made before then. So I could very easily drag and drop things and kind of edit them to the next video I was working on. So the workflow of these BTS videos is that the writer will work on a script. We will film it with a teleprompter, and then we will take it into this document we have. And so this is for the video I'll show you on the next slide. I've chopped up the script into basically one sentence or one phrase at a time. And on the right side, I'm just kind of storyboarding what I want to have on screen at that time. So I'm saying, some headlines here, and I'm linking to that so I can get the right data, the homelessness chart, a roll title, basically just storyboarding the whole thing out. So I have kind of a game plan going into the edit. And then we just keep track of other things, right? So very first, just basic trimming, making sure we kind of get a locked cut of the audio first before we go into After Effects. And then knocking out the title, lower third, that's kind of the basic stuff that's the same across the whole thing. And then doing all those animations, and then bringing those back into Premiere to do the color grade, the captions, watermark, outro, music, sound effects, credits. They seem like basic things, but it's really helpful to have that reminder there, because there's so many little things that go into making that kind of company style work. And one other thing that I wanted to talk about with the social media content we do is, and you'll see this a little more later on, is everything on social media is downstream of our other content. We're not really creating things just for social media. We're adapting an article for social media. We're adapting one of our documentaries for social media. And our socials are really just a way to get people to those places. So I will show you the BTS that is actually in this storyboard that I was very happy to work on.
For the second year in a row, Toledo, Ohio has been declared one of the hottest housing markets in the US. But in that same time frame, the city's unhoused population has more than doubled in size. So why are so many people struggling to afford housing in one of the country's most affordable cities? Well, Toledo's newfound reputation has attracted a lot of investment in real estate, which, along with inflation, has led to a substantial increase in the city's cost of living. At the same time, Toledo is at risk of losing more than 22% of its affordable housing supply by 2031. While the local public housing agency is authorized to subsidize the cost of rent for low-income residents, budget cuts and the widening gap between wages and rent in Toledo have made it impossible for the agency to issue any new subsidies and stay within their budget. Access to transitional housing is key to eliminating homelessness, but with thousands stuck on public housing waiting lists and more federal cuts looming on the horizon, Toledo's housing advocates will have to adapt.
So that was a video I really enjoyed doing. Obviously, it was a bit of a dense script, but I think with enough animations, it keeps your attention. And something I really benefited from this is the cover graphic of this article was using these assets here. So where it might be hard sometimes to come up with my own graphic design and visual style for a video, sometimes the article graphic can really help. Okay, so now I want to show you a series that I actually brought about called Ask an Intern. We were tasked with creating a video to kind of introduce all of the interns on the social media. Obviously, we had 25 interns, and that's a lot to introduce in like a minute-long video. And they had done one the previous year, and once we had filmed them, we realized the questions we asked weren't really one-word answers. So it was really hard to make like a quick, snappy edit. And it was a ton of work to film all 25 interns. So I said, what if we just turn each question into their own video? We can do a little series called Ask an Intern, and we can get a lot more mileage out of this shoot day rather than it just being one video. So they approved that, and I made, I think, 5 or 6 Ask an Intern videos that showed off all the interns.
I thought it was going to be really cutthroat, so if I'm being honest, I was a little scared.
Walked into the office and it was like, wow, like this office could be in New York or it could be in Chicago. It would fit right in.
I was surprised that there were so many interns.
I thought there was going to be like 5 or 6 people, and there were a lot more than that. I think it's a really cool environment.
It's very young, not Gen Z, maybe millennial, maybe.
Had a lot of like startup energy.
People really get to know each other well. There's some friendly competition. And of course, people really care about the work that they do here.
And I think that mix of being on top of things, but also taking a moment to step back and have some fun is really what defines the Midstory environment.
Yeah, so that's Ask an Intern. Really happy with how those videos turned out. And I think I have enough time, so I'm going to show you just one more BTS that I think was a good example of the animation work that I do.
Before Ohio State and Michigan ever met on the gridiron, they met on the battlefield. The greatest sports rivalry in North America literally started with a war, the 1835 Toledo War. The two states were fighting for control of the Toledo Strip, a narrow piece of land stretching from Lake Erie to Indiana. The so-called war was bloodless, but militias were deployed, criminal penalties were assessed, and there was some serious trash talking. Ohio ultimately gained control of the Strip, but the animosity between the two sides resurfaced decades later in 1897, when Ohio State and Michigan met on the football field for the first time. For those who compete in it, the rivalry carries profound weight. In Toledo, you can find fans of both sides, and the game is as important as ever, with upwards of 12 million people tuning in every year.
So as you can see, it's very like Vox style, or if you've seen Howtown on Instagram, kind of that style of animation that I think I've worked on. And the next thing I do is writing. Pretty much everyone on the team does some writing, and this was a completely new skill for me. Like I said, I had no journalism courses. So this was something I needed to learn. So going through the process of, having really well-researched pitches, pitching those to our editorial team, doing all the interviews, and then writing in AP style and really learning the style of Midstory, right? So it's not like BuzzFeed casual, but it's not like the most sanitized writing. It's somewhere in the middle, and kind of adapting that and learning that. And then going through the sometimes very tedious process of editing it and making changes to the story, and then doing fun cover graphics like this, though I will say another person on the team that's better at graphic design did this cover graphic. So a huge project that we worked on in the fall is Withstanding, which this is a 6-part mini doc series. This was part of a grant for America's 250th, which is this year. And that's what funded this project. And most of our funding comes from grants like this that fund specific projects. So this was something that was in the works for, I think, around a 1.5 to 2 years before I showed up at Midstory. So they had done a ton of work and research, and then all of the shoots had happened before I arrived. So with a few months out before the deadline, they came to me and the other media person and said, all right, it's time to edit these docs. So we each took 3 and we got started editing them. And I edited my first one all of them, very similar to how I've been editing all the docs I've worked on, which is kind of a more, typical documentary like PBS style that basically we brought to our bosses and they said, this is boring. It's a little too dry. We need something more. And they really pushed for us to do a lot more animations and push it more into that Vox style territory. So that was something we had to adjust to on the fly without a ton of time left on the project. But we did manage to get them all done. I ended up working fully on 2 of them and then working on some animations for the other ones. And it was a really, really great project. It made me look at documentary a completely different way. And one thing that was really great to show myself is that I could work on a documentary that I hadn't filmed. I think I call myself an editor first, but everything I'd worked on throughout college, I had also shot myself just because I needed to. And I still love the process of editing these, even though I wasn't there to film them. So that was great to learn about my own editing. And then at the end of the 6 films being completed, it was made into an exhibit that is at the Toledo main library downtown, and they had a big event to show it off. So you can see that on the right. Luckily, that was our boss who built all of that, because we were very, very busy down to the last few hours editing, but it turned out really great. And then all 6 documentaries are showcased there. So I do want to show you maybe half of one of the docs that I did, just so you can see more of this animation work that I did on it. And yeah, so this is A Breath of Fresh Air. This is about I never even explained what Withstanding was about. The concept was these 6 sites of adaptive reuse throughout Ohio that we got funded from the Ohio AM 250. So these are 6 sites that had previous uses, whether that's an ammunitions factory or a gas holder building or a school, lots of different uses, and they've all been completely transformed into new purposes, whether that's apartments or pickleball or new kinds of manufacturing. Some really, really amazing stories, and I very much suggest you should check all of the films out. So this is one of them.
At the turn of the 20th century, tuberculosis was at its height, killing an estimated 450 Americans every day. Fast forward 100 years, and COVID-19 was taking a toll at twice that rate. But throughout that same century, a playful brick building on the banks of the Olentangy has housed a time-tested secret: fresh air.
Light, fresh air, that is something you don't get in a lot of buildings today. So this preservation project, really making the building true to its roots, that's the success of it all.
2571 Neal Avenue in Columbus, Ohio is all about ventilation and sunlight. It's got beautifully tall windows, open patios, covered porches, and even cross-ventilating hallways. It was built as part of the open air school movement, designed as a solution to the tuberculosis epidemic that was ravaging the Western world.
The first open air school was set up in Germany, and it was called a school in the woods. And the concept quickly came to the United States, with the first one being a building in Providence, Rhode Island, 1908. The idea was it could be a school that was set up outside, it could be on a rooftop, it could be in a classroom that had all of its walls removed and windows installed. But Columbus was actually really proactive in this regard, because by 1913, the first open-air school was built on this site. It was just a one-story, but had ample windows and wraparound porch. And then in 1928, the current building was built.
The first thing was siting the building, siting it away from sources of pollution. And here we were at the edge of the universe and away from the city. Big open windows, big open spaces, and having this focus on bringing in daylight and views. We know that it's essential for our wellness, and really these schools were designed as a focus on wellness.
This used to be the space where the kids used to take their naps. They had heated floors. We left the pipes, the original pipes intact, just so you can get a sense of the history and the evolution of the building. This property had laid vacant for a number of years. And when we came into the project, we had created a lot of concepts.
I think when they bought this building, it was an opportunity, but they didn't quite know what to do.
And so our first plan was actually to put student housing. We even went to the area commission, and when we presented it to them, they asked us to do a little bit more research on the community. We realized that it's not just students who are living in this area, it's actually families. That's what got us excited about creating this community hub. How do you take this beautiful building and allow more people to see it?
The original architect for the building was Howard Dwight Smith, the same architect that did the Ohio Stadium. It was very prolific. And looking at the building, this was modeled on Italian Renaissance design. When you have a building like that it's not just
You're muted.
My bad. Okay, sorry. So yeah, great project to be a part of. And then once those docs were finished, I thought about, how can we extend the use of this? How are we going to get people to go watch the full documentaries? So I proposed making Instagram reels and social media content out of the docs. So basically I took all 6 docs. I made 3 videos that were about a minute long out of each of them. And it made for a lot of content that we could post on the social pages that were a little easier to make, whereas, the BTS are a little harder to make. So that gave us content to put out while we were working on some of the more time-consuming things. So, they didn't all do amazing, but it gave us some consistency, which is important for social media. And then I'll get to our radio show on the next slide, but this is another example here that, we are recording the audio for these conversations, but you know what? If we're recording the audio, we might as well throw up a camera and also get the video for it. So then we can.
They helped Gary get the commission to design the Weissman Art Museum.
Podcast clips like this on our social media and kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So yeah, that's a super essential part of what I've learned here is that when you have such a small team, you need to make the most out of everything you do and extend the use as much as possible. So then everything else that I do at the office, we build exhibits. We have this little time lapse here of us building this immigration exhibit in the library. Like I said, we now have an hour-long radio show that we do every week that half the time gets filled with one of our podcasts, but then I have to come up with the rest of the time through these conversations about articles. And then we go to a lot of events. If you've ever worked in nonprofits, you'll probably know that nonprofits work very closely with a lot of other nonprofits, and all these organizations support each other. So we go to a lot of events for that. We're in the bottom right corner with Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, and then basically anything else that needs done around the office, outside of the office. It's a small team, so it's all hands on deck for everything. So as I wrap up, I want to talk about some of the key takeaways. Something I didn't mention in the beginning, but because I graduated a year early, and to be honest, I wasn't that involved on campus. I really only had Jerk Magazine, and that was kind of it. I didn't have, in my opinion, the best portfolio or the biggest portfolio. I didn't necessarily feel great about entering the workforce with a small portfolio. So as you've seen from the work I've shown, this fellowship has given me a much more expansive portfolio that I feel much more comfortable going into the workforce having. And kind of off of that, this is a great opportunity to ease into the professional world. It's a fellowship. I'm living in Toledo, which luckily the housing is very cheap here. And kind of getting to dip my toe into this world before I go off into a standard 9-to-5 job. And then lastly, there are experiences outside of the big cities. Like I said at the beginning, I think in some of these schools it can get very overwhelming. Everyone is going to one of the coasts, but even in Toledo, there are nonprofits like this. There are marketing agencies. There are production companies making movies. We're right next to Detroit and Ann Arbor, where a lot of things happen. There are experiences outside of New York City and LA, if that's something you're interested in. So lastly, I just want to plug the internship and the fellowship. I'm not sure quite how many people on this call are in their first few years or coming up on graduation, but the internship is great for people early in their college career. It's a 9-week in-person program. Like I said, writing stories, working on videos, getting to explore the Midwest, and it's a great experience. It is unpaid, but I know they have some partnerships with some schools to find funding, and I'm sure whether that's through Source or other opportunities through Syracuse or Ithaca, you could find funding if that is something you're interested in. The deadline is March 8th. They get a lot of applicants, so if you are thinking about that, get that in soon. You can find that more information at that link. But really, I'm hoping some of you are interested in the fellowship, which is what I've done for the past year. It is full-time in person, and it does carry a stipend. And like I said, cost of living in Toledo is very cheap, so you can make that stipend go a long way here. Luckily, contracts typically last a year with opportunities to extend. I actually started on a 6-month contract and then extended to a year. So applications are rolling, and they need people. You just need to provide a resume, cover letter, and any work samples. And you can email that to them at contact@midstory.org. But specifically for all you post-production people, they need media fellows. I sent this in the jobs channel in the Slack, specifically the media fellow, which is my role. They really need people for this as I'm kind of wrapping up my time. And if any of what I said to you sounds interesting, please apply. They're looking for people in media and post-production specifically, that even if you don't have experience in After Effects or Premiere, I didn't have any animation experience coming in, and then they helped pay for that professional development. And it's been a great learning opportunity and a great portfolio builder. So yeah, if you're interested in being a media fellow at Midstory, I'd be happy to talk to you more. You can reach out to me. I didn't provide contact info, but we can get that to you. Let me know if you have any questions, and that is all. Right on time.
Great job. Great work too.
If anyone wants
Thank
to
you.
apply, they should reach out to you.
Yes, reach out to me.
The best way to get a job is to take someone else's job.
It's true. It's very true.
So if Evan leaves and he recommends you, then it's likely that's the easier route for his supervisors to hire someone who has very similar skills and is vetted by someone who did the job, basically. So, great. Thanks, Evan. Do you want to put
Yeah.
your contact info in
Yes.
the chat?
I
And
will do
then
that.
does anyone have any questions for Evan? Brendan.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for going over everything about the fellowship and your past experiences working for this and just video editing and documentary filmmaking in general. I really got out a lot of it, and I'm interested in learning more about Adobe After Effects. I don't have too much experience other than just one class assignment. Do you have any recommendations on like what aspects or functions or tools to kind of learn first to get started, or stuff in Adobe After Effects that is like really helpful when like working for jobs like assignments that you have to do or projects at the fellowship?
Yes. So I don't remember the exact name of the course that we use, but I will get it to you by the end of the call. So courses like that, which some of them aren't even paid, you can find a lot on YouTube. Personally, I am not like I need a structure to learn something. So, having a paid course that I had some time to do I was more motivated to do that than search out YouTube tutorials, but you can find everything on YouTube. But really, like the three main things that if you're looking to do like this Fox style of animation that I have found to be super important are one, easy easing your keyframes. That's big. I'm seeing some nods. Doing any sort of like posterized time to, you may think, oh, this is going to make it look super choppy, but actually it makes it look stylized and cooler, and you can hide a lot of animation quirks by slowing it down. And then just lots of layers of like dust and like dust and scratches, and even if it's very low opacity. Oh, and vignettes are super important. It's crazy how like you'll watch an animation and you're like, this doesn't really look right, but then you'll put a vignette on it and it's like, oh, it makes sense with the rest of the video now. Shane is laughing, but like
Try posterize time on a vignette, it'll blow your mind. Whoa.
Okay, so these are like simple things, but they're the tools I keep going back to, and I'm like, I didn't even think about these before, and just another thing in your toolkit. So I will find, yes, fractal noise too. That's very important too. I will find the name of the course that we used, but hopefully those tips help.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yep. Frank?
Hi, Evan. Oh, all right. I was just checking. Oh, sorry. I just want to say it's really exciting to hear what you do, because I had a very similar experience. 2 years ago, I was working with also a nonprofit journalism in DC. It's called DC Witness. They do a bunch of like crime analytics and just like court casing, that kind of stuff. I also had to do a bunch of social media, like 9:16 animations for our Instagram accounts. So it was really exciting to see what you do, and I think what you're doing is very much up my alley. And but something different though is that you mentioned you guys had a team on to like work on all of these stuff. I did all of my works alone, so I was just wondering how that experience is like.
Yeah, so for most of my time, I had the a senior video person who really only had a few years ahead of me, who I was working under for most of the time. So she was able to give me, all of her resources. Like I said, that massive Premiere file she gave to me, and really she was there to just bounce ideas off. I think that was the most important thing of, especially when I was learning and starting out on animation, just getting someone, a fresh pair of eyes to to point out what looks wrong. So that's kind of the main thing. And then I think also just having someone to take a break from editing. I think sometimes you get really into an edit or into an animation and it's all you can think about. And just having that group of fellows was really nice, that, you know, it's people around my same age that are in the same place, and, you know, we can talk about the projects or de-stress from it. Was really impactful. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but just like our one boss, I think if he hadn't started this nonprofit, he would have just been a cinematographer. So it's kind of all of his gear that we use, and it was mainly through the documentaries that I got a lot of his feedback, and just like taking that feedback in, understanding where it's coming from. Like I said, the other video person I was working with came from like a marketing background, whereas I came from more of a documentary background, and just having someone to bounce ideas off of. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was really insightful.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi. I know we had a class together, so I'm glad
Yeah,
that
good to
this
see
all
you.
worked out for you well. And you also mentioned that documentary, your capstone project, when we were in class together, so I'm glad you got to do that. But I'm also from the Midwest, so I'm from Wisconsin, and I actually also talked with Midstory during like the virtual career fair.
Okay.
Because like you, I was like interested in nonfiction work. And I just had like two questions logistic wise. Like, how would you say the fellowship is? I know it's like full time, but were you working like 9 to 5, or did it like matter on the day? Were you like doing a lot of work outside of the out of the fellowship? And then also, I know there's a stipend.
Yes.
Like, were you able to sustain like your lifestyle for a year on the fellowship? Just because I think about like logistics and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I work every day, 10 to 5, not starting at 9. And that's pretty much the only hours that I need to be in. And it's in the office every week. I never really work outside of those hours. When that documentary project was coming towards the end, I personally put in I didn't have to, but I wanted the documentaries to be up to my standard. So I put in a few extra hours, but that's absolutely never like expected or forced or anything like that. So yeah, 10 to 5. And for the stipend, I don't know if I should say like exact numbers, but like for me, I pay like 400. I live with roommates for housing, which, you know, if you're going out to New York City or LA, probably triple or more than that. I wouldn't even know. And yeah, I'm living on a budget. I don't know. Hody could probably back me up on this, but I live very plainly, so I can make the most out of it. I think if you're used to Midwestern living, not spending a ton, I think you can definitely make it work, at least for the year that it is. Any other logistic questions you have? Sorry, I
No,
kind of
but
got lost in
amazing.
that.
Thank you so much
Okay,
for
cool.
the honesty there.
Yes. If you have any other like more specific things, just let me know.
How do you like living in Toledo?
You're asking all the tough questions.
You're asking, wow, okay. So a huge mission of Midstory is, you probably noticed, a lot of the content is geared specifically about Toledo, right? So our kind of broad focus is the Midwest, but we focus even more on Ohio content and even more on Toledo content. And I think I've really gotten an appreciation of Toledo. If you listen to our podcast, it's called Brain Drain, and it's talking about all these people who've left Toledo and why they left, and why the people that come back stay, and the people that are trying to make the city a better place. Toledo really does have some great amenities. It has one of the nation's best park systems, which is really great. Low cost of living. Yeah, there's still, there are there are some things you can't do in Toledo that you can do other places. But like I said, close to Ann Arbor, Detroit, if you need to take a weekend trip somewhere else, you certainly can. I was not expecting to get grilled on Toledo, so I'm gonna end it there.
No, I mean, I think Ohio gets a bad rap sometimes, but there are a lot of really, really cool parts of Ohio.
Yeah,
I just haven't been
for
to
sure.
Toledo like in a long, long time. So I was wondering. I remember Columbus had a pretty awesome like gallery scene and stuff. Toledo's
Yeah.
a school town too, right?
Yeah, not a huge school town. Where our office is actually based on the University of Toledo campus. And so it's not a huge part of the culture of it. It's not like Syracuse, where like the only thing there is the university. We do have the Toledo Art Museum, which is one of like the biggest art museums in the country. Really great. I was gonna say something else, but yeah. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. If you're familiar with MASH, the show, my dad had us watch it growing up, so I knew Toledo from Tony Packo's in MASH and Klinger, and I thought when I did my interview with Midstory, I was gonna drop. I was like, I know Tony Packo's, and I thought that was gonna give me like so much street cred with them. I realized that in Toledo, nobody cares about Tony Packo's. And that was kind of a hard lesson I learned. Unfortunate. Any other questions? If not, feel free to contact. I'm going to find that course.
You're muted.
You muted yourself again.
Sorry, my bad. I'm going to find that course for Brendan real quick. But
Cool.
Feel free, if you have any other questions, we can wrap up.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I will wrap up. So thank you, Evan. This was great. I'm gonna stop the recording.